Welcome back to our Beatrice YouTube channel. Today's class will be learning how to create this beautiful back vent that you see on a skirt. The skirt is going to be fully lined, and then you're going to be creating the pleats that we see here. It's a cut together pleat, and I'm going to be taking us through how we're going to be cutting and sewing this step by step. It's a very detailed tutorial. This is something you like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so for this tutorial we're going to be focusing on the back vent that we're creating. So I have my fabric folded into two, so this is going to be the fold point and it's going to double as my center back. Okay, so the first measurement I'm going to be taking is 10 inches. So the 10 inches is going to be for my vent pleat. Okay, and the 10 inches is taken on fold. So now I'm going to take my tape. Now you can see I have 10 inches, and then I'm going to mark that into a straight line, which I have here. So this is a short skirt, it's just around 24 inches long, so I have 1 inch seam allowance to fold it in like this. So this is just 24 inches long, but if you're going to be making a longer skirt, you're going to apply the same method. So now the first allowance I'm taking now is my vent allowance, which is 10 inches. After that, I'm going to go ahead now and create my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. Remember, this is the back and the zipper is going to pass through it, so I have 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So I have this 1.5 inches because I'm going to be hemming the zipper area, because I'm fixing lining to this. So by the time my hem meets its lining, I'm going to be left with 1 inch. So if you are not fixing lining to this, you can just work with 1 inch. 1 inch is fine for zipper allowance. So now I'm going to rule the 1.5 inches again. So now I have this first line, that's 10 inches for the vent, and then I have another 1.5 for my zipper allowance. So after having your zipper allowance, which is here, the next thing is to create your skirt. So now if you have your front bodies drafted already, what you just need to do is to place it on this place, but where you have your zipper allowance, which is this second line here, and then you shape out your skirt. But for me, I've gone ahead to create my skirt pattern from this. So this is my waistline, this upper part is my waistline, this is the hip line, and this is the hem. So I measured my waist measurement, and then I created my shape for my back by my back panel. So now I'm going to bring in my scissors and cut out this pattern so that we can see it better. Okay, so I've cut this out now. This is the allowance for the vent, and this is the shape. You can see that the skirt now is shaped. The next thing now is to determine where your slit is going to start from. So your slit can just start a little below your hip line, your hip measurement. So this is my hip line. I can just extend it here, 9 inches for my hip line, and then I want my slit to start around 1 to 2 inches below the, that's just under the butt. Okay, my actual hip line is even around 7 inches. So now I have this 9 inches, I've added 2 inches, so I'm going to just add another 2 inches. So that slit is just going to start just underneath the butt. So now from my waistline, my slit is starting around 11 inches. So I'm just going to make the 11 inches to a straight line and then connect it to where I have my slit allowance there. Okay, so I have it like that. So now by the time I sew it down, I'll still sew it with 1 inch. So now everything is going to be around 11.5 inches or thereabouts, which is fine. So you can decide to place your slit anywhere you want. This is a short skirt. Like I said, if you're working with a longer skirt, you can just place it like 3 inches above your knee length. Okay, so now after determining where this slit is going to be, I'm going to cut it out. Okay, you can see where I'm cutting, and then this cutting is just going to stop on that 10 inches, the first allowance that we have there. That's the 10 inches for the vent. So once I stop it there, I'll go ahead and cut it vertically on that line that I marked as well. So this cutting should not enter into your zipper allowance. Now I'm going to remove it. So let me just explain this. This is my back vent. You can see where it stops. This is from my waistline to where my slit is going to start. This allowance that you have here is your zipper allowance, and this is the draft for your basic skirt. So now, because I'm going to add a lining to this, I'm going to go ahead and cut my lining exactly the same way I have cut the skirt. So I'm gonna have to cut out my lining. You can see my lining is cut exactly the same way I cut my main fabric. The only difference is that the lining is shorter by 1 inch from the main fabric, so that I can use it to fold it in like this, because I don't want my lining to be poking out. So the next thing to do now is to go ahead and hem it. So to hem it, you're just going to lay your main fabric against your lining, right side facing right side, just like we have it, and then you're going to sew it on the lining part, which is here. And then after sewing it on the hem of the lining, remember it's shorter, so you can see that we have the difference. So you're going to pull this now, and then also sew it around the zipper allowance area. That's why we added half an inch to the zipper allowance, so that by the time I finish sewing it, it will go back to 1 inch. So here now you can see me pulling it. I'll sew it all around now, and then I'll bring it back for us to continue. So the lining and the main fabric is sewn together now, as you can see. And I wanted to sew, I sew it on the hemline here, and then I wanted to sew it on this zipper allowance area, so that everything was going to be neatly concealed. So on these corners now, you're going to notch it so that you won't have anything packing there on both sides. And then from this side, remember the side is still open. You can also close this upper part as well if you want. So you can close the upper part, then we'll turn it out from the side. So I've gone ahead to turn it out now, and this is what it looks like. I hope you can see it well. It's quite big, so you can see that everything is neatly turned. So this is the upper part. I've also gone ahead to turn it. This is the zipper area. This is where we're going to be creating our vent, and this is what everything looks like now. So remember, we made our lining to be shorter by 1 inch, so that's why we have our main fabric coming out like this. So the next thing is for you to iron this really flat. So the secret to creating a beautiful black back vent is ironing. So you make sure you iron every step of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and iron this now so that I can relax well. Okay, so I've gone ahead to iron it now. You can see that everything is lying flat. Okay, I hope you can see it clearly. So the next thing is to fold it into two again on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so when you fold it into two, this is the shape you're going to have. So after folding it into two, you can see the shape that we have. The next thing is to mark out our seam allowance, our zipper allowance, sorry, that we created. So I'm going to be marking out 1 inch in this case. Remember, I've turned it in with half an inch. So now from here, I'll mark out 1 inch for my zipper allowance all through to the M, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line, and then I'll go ahead and stitch it. Okay, so I'm going to be using a blue thread for stitching, because the green thread I have is very close to this. So I want us to see all my seam lines very well. So now I'm going to take my ruler and then rule a straight line all the way to the hem. Then I'm going to stitch on the straight line that I have here. So I hope you can see it well. I'll go ahead now and sew it. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it, and you can see my seam line clearly now. So this is the shape we have. So now when you open it out, you will see that you have your basic skirt back. Okay, so now let me turn it to the wrong side. You can see that we have our small basic skirt shape back. Okay, so this is what we have. The excess that we have here now is for the vent. So you can go ahead now and press open your allowance for your zipper. We're still going to install the zipper later, so you can press open your seams so that it will make the work easier for you. So now I'll go ahead now and press it open, then we'll come back to create the vent. Okay, so the seams now are pressed open both in and out. You can see that our seam allowance now is pressed, so we'll start creating the vent. So to create the vent, I'm just going to fold it like this again to make this easy for us. Remember, we have around 10 inches for our folding allowance. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the Okay, so as my camera was not recording, I'm going to remove the zipper allowance. Remember, the zipper allowance was also to the hemline. Then I'll start marking I'll start creating the places where I'm going to be adding the pleats. Remember, we have 10 inches allowance when we drafted. So now I'm going to be using 2 inches each. That's going to leave me with 5 pleats. 2 in 5 places is going to give me the 10 inches allowance that I started with. So now after removing and remember that the zipper allowance was not part of these 10 inches. So after removing the zipper allowance, now I'll start marking 2 inches, and I'll make that into a straight line. You can mark in bits, or you can just mark everything together, and then you go ahead and create your plate. So this is the first marking. I hope my chalk is visible. From there, I'm going to mark another 2 inches, and then I'm going to create my second marking. So that's how I'm going to create all of these markings, 2 inches interval. Okay, so all of the marks now I created, you can see 1 2 3 4 5. So we have 5. So to start pleating them now, to make it easier for us, I'm going to run a loose stitch. That's a gather stitch. I'll set my machine to gather stitch. That's very loose, and I'm going to run a loose stitch here before I create my pleats. But if you can create it without the pleat, the stitch, it's easy, but it's okay, but the stitch will make it easier for you to pleat. So I'll go and do this one after the other. I'm going to do the first one. So remember, I'm not placing this stitch on the zipper allowance area. I'm placing it on the first 2 inches for my pleat. So I'll go ahead now and place this loose stitch and bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so you can see now I've created the loose stitch, and it's a loose stitch because we are still going to loosen it back. So this is just to guide us. So now to form the pleat, I'm going to open up the skirt like this, and then I'm going to pleat it like I'm doing a kissing pleat, in such a way that you see this seam that we have here is going to match up with the center seam. That's if you open your simple allowance, I'm going to place this seam by opening it, so it's going to be creating pleats on those sides, just like you're doing an inverted pleat. Okay, so you can see, let me use the M to explain. So this is the seam for our zipper allowance, and this is our new seam. So once you place this new seam on top of the seam for zipper allowance, you can see that it has created double pleats on both sides. So that is what we want to create. I'm just going to create that pleat now, and then you're going to iron it down so that we can maintain the pleat. That's why I said ironing is very important. So once this pleat is created now, you can use a steam iron so that your fabric is not going to burn, because you need your iron to be hot to create that. So when it's hot like that, you place your iron and iron it very neatly so that you have your crease line there. Okay, so I've ironed this flat. You can see that I just sprinkled some water so that I can iron this as flat as possible. So I've ironed it down on both sides. The next thing is to create my second pleat. So to create the second pleat, on this second seam line that I have here again, I'm going to run the loose stitch to assist me in creating it. But like I said, if you can just do it on your own, you can, but just to make this beginner friendly, I'll go ahead and create my second pleat, my second seam now, and then we'll bring it back to show us how to pleat it. Okay, so I've gone ahead to create the second pleat. So if you want to create your pleat and you feel that you may lose your pleat, your first pleat, you can just pin it down on both sides before you go ahead and sew it. So now I've created the second sewing, so you can see the seam line. So again, just like I did for the first one, just watch what I'm doing. The seam line, the second seam line that I have here, I'll make sure it's sitting on the center again, just like I did for the first one, and then I'm going to press it down. So I'll make sure that this is uniform. Okay, you can see, once I'm sure of it now, I'll bring in my iron and iron it down. So you can actually create all of these seams, okay, but I just want it to be step by step. So the next one, I'm just going to run the loose stitch on both of them, then we're going to create the pleats together so that you won't have to be going to the machine all the time. So now when you are sure that it is at the center point where you want it, you're going to press it down with your very hot iron, okay, and then you can sprinkle some water as well. Okay, so I've ironed down the second plate and you can see that it will automatically create plates on the, so we have one, two, we have two plates now. The next thing now is to create my loose stitch on this and this as well, so that we can create the plates. So I'm going to create the two last stitches, and then just like we did for the first one, I'm going to take this down again and then create the pleat. Okay, so after creating the next plate, you are going to iron it down. It's the same exact process. You iron it down and then do the same thing for the last one. Okay, so the plate is created now. The next thing now is to form the last plate. Okay, so second to the last plate, remember we are forming, we've created the third, this is the fourth plate. Just the same way we open that, we open this stitch. You can see I'm using the hem and this zipper area to dip my finger. Then I'm going to place the seam, the where I have the place where I have my seam line directly on top of this opened part again, and then so it will automatically create the second plate for you. Then you sprinkle some water and then iron it down. So it's as simple as that. So here now I have it. I'm going to bring in my iron and then iron it flat. Okay, so the fourth one now is ironed as well. So now we're going to be ironing the last one. The last one is the center fold. It doesn't have a seam line, but you can just use your crease line to get it. So now you dip your finger, place it on the middle part, and then you press it down. Okay, so now all the pleats are created. After pressing it down, the next thing is for you to also iron this flat as well. Okay, so now I'm ironing everything down. You can see that the pleats are lined flat on top of each other, and then we have all our seams, the seams that we created, lined directly on top of where we have our seam allowance for the zipper. So you can see what we have. So the next thing now is to hold down your pleats. You can use your pen to hold it down so that you can brace it for you not to lose your pleat here. So we'll do that now, and then we'll start to loosen the gather stitch that we created for pleating. So you can just lift the the skirt up like this so that you can hold it down. So after holding it down now, I'll take it to the sewing machine. So you can decide to sew it anyhow. You can just plait it like, sew it like this, or you can just give it a V shape. Whatever design you want to opt for is fine. Just make sure you hold this down. So I'll go ahead now and sew it down before I start ripping the seam. So I've gone ahead to sew it down. I just gave it a straight stitch like that, but if you want it to be in form of V shape or whatever shape that you want, you can create it. So again, I use this blue color of thread. I hope you can see my seam line very well. I just breezed it here, so now it's going to show on this other side as well. So you need to use the matching color of thread if you're doing this for a client. So I'm cutting my, at this point, if you feel you have not pressed your pleats very well, because for it to be beautiful, the crease line of the pleats has to show. So you can go ahead and press it, but just opening this now, you can see my crease line clearly. So you iron it as flat as possible. So after ironing it, the next thing now is to start ripping this seam. So because we sew it with gather stitch, it's going to be very easy for you to remove. I'm just going to bring in my seam ripper now. So I have my seam ripper. I'm just going to go ahead now and start loosening these seams. So I'm going to rip all of them carefully. So like I said, it's going to be very easy to remove because it's not a real, it's just a basting stitch. So I remove everything. So I have ripped all of the seams open, and you can see that I still maintain all of my pleats. So now this is what it looks like on the right side. So for it to open up for your client to walk freely in it, I'm going to be ripping this seam that I created on my zipper allowance. Remember that part is cut on fold, which means you cannot lose it. It's not going to completely separate. You still have it together even after we have loosed this center seam. So I'm going to loosen the center seam now so that we can see what it looks like. So the seam is also loosened now. You can see how this is going to completely open up for you. So you can see what we have there, and you can see our pleats there. So let me turn to the right side so that we can see it well, because this side is actually plain. So when you open it up, you can see the pleats that we have there, and then when the person just closes the leg, you can see that it's going to return back to the original size for our skirt. So the pleats are just inwards because they are folded on each other. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.